Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this 17th session of this Ramadan Tafseer. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa afdalu salati wa atammu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. In this surah we now move on to the middle part of the Quran where we have just finished Surah Maryam, and in Surah Maryam there are verses now to do with the end of times. So now this theme of towards the end of time, the hour to be established, the hashr, the gathering, these now come in the next few surahs, such as in Taha, which is not one of the ones I've selected today, but including Al-Anbiya, the prophets, as well as Al-Hajj, the pilgrimage. Those last two I'll be looking at today. And Surah Al-Anbiya is also about the prophets, and it mentions about their mission and the struggles they had, the patience that they had to bear with upon all the difficulties that came their way from falsehood, from batil. And then moving on to Surah Hajj, it is a Madani surah that then brings laws. It has a climate of the Makki surah, but it is a Madani surah, so it does address beliefs as well, but it brings out about the last days, last hours, as well as Islamic laws regarding Hajj, regarding sacrifice in that surah. In the first ayah I want to look at today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to be questioned, but we are going to be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Comes as in other similar ayats about in the sama wal basar wal fuada kul ulaika kana anhu mas'ula, that verily the hearing, the seeing, and the heart, they'll all be questioned, they'll all be responsible for being questioned about. So there is, as we have this purpose of life, we have been created for worship, there will be a scale at the end of it that will weigh our deeds, our good and bad, and we will be questioned about all our acts in this world. So we have a purpose to be good, do good, and steer clear of evil. The questioning in the grave, for example, Allah subhanahu will have send two angels, Munkar and Nakir, and they'll be asking us, who is your Lord, Man Rabbuk, what is your deen, and who is this man? And it will be the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Muslims, the mu'mins, the believers, will be the ones who answer it correctly, and for them that life, that world now in the barzakh, that place between this dunya and the akhirah, we will be the ones successful, and we're living in our graves in a more comfort, more spacious way, as opposed to the disbelievers who will know the answers to those questions. So this is about At-Tibaq, that Allah subhanahu is not questioned, but you are questioned. So two contrasting ideas in At-Tibaq, as we see in Balagha. In the next verse, Allah subhanahu says, فَفَهَّمْنَاهَا سُلَيْمَانَ وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. So this is about Dawud alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam, the father and son, both who were king prophets. And the Prophet ﷺ had a choice: did he want to be a king prophet, or do you want to be a slave prophet? And he chose to be an abd, a slave prophet. Such was his character, the Prophet ﷺ. And in this example, a person comes and complains to Prophet Dawood, who was the king, who was the judge at that time, and that his neighbor's sheep are now eaten in his garden from his grass. So, when he wanted justice, so Dawud al-Islam gave his verdict. But Sulaiman al-Islam, a child at that time, he heard that story, he heard that issue that came up, and he gave his judgment that, would it not be better if... So this is now Sulaiman al-Islam, his solution was that the sheep of the one whose sheep committed that error, that sheep now go to the other neighbor who uses that sheep, benefits from the milk, and until the that was eaten all grows back to its normal state, until then he keeps that sheep, benefits from it, and then he will return the sheep when everything's back to how it was in the first place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we enabled Sulaiman to understand, that he gave him fahm, gave him understanding, and then the next verse says وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, and then to each of one of them we gave wisdom and knowledge. So it's not just Sulaiman alayhi salam that Allah SWT gave wisdom and knowledge to, but also Dawud alayhi salam. And this was just to make sure that we do not think that it was only given to Sulaiman alayhi salam. So Allah SWT said وَكُلًّا, both of them were given. In the next ayah, Allah SWT says يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ كَمَا بَدَأْنَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُ وَعَدًا عَلَيْنَا إِنَّا كُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ. The day when we roll up, so now again it's talking about the end of times. We've seen something about being questioned. That was in Surah Anbiya. This is as well in Surah Anbiya. The day when we roll up the sky, and we roll up like a parchment, like a paper, like a scroll rolls up the writings, so all that we have written, and then it's folded up and put into one easy to hold. Just as we originate the first creation, so we shall bring it back again. A promise on us, we are sure to do it. So this is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's promise, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, whenever He promises something, He will never break that promise. Although if He wanted to, He could, but that's not the way Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does it. I only mention that because Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala can do whatever He wants, and no one can stop Him in any way. So this is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala keeping His promise, and that's what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does. He's promised us Jannah for the believers, so it's upon us to fulfill that condition of believing and departing this world with Iman, so we may be able to attain Jannah that has been promised. Ameen. So this is now in form of tashbih. It's a simile, and it's given as an example of the end of times. Allah Ta'ala will then deal with this world and how He'll roll it up as if you're rolling up a writings on a piece of paper, and you roll it up into an easy to hold unit. And then finally, in the last verse, Allah SWT says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ مَنْ تَوَلَّاهُ فَأَنَّهُ يُذِلُّهُ وَيَهْدِيهِ إِلَىٰ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. For him, and this is referring to Iblis, Shaitan, it is decreed that whosoever follows him, because Shaitan and his disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he was to be punished for it, but Allah gave him respite because he asked for it, he begged for it. So Allah said, as I mentioned before, that you have until the end of time, and then whoever wants to follow you, He will put Shaitan as well as all those who followed him into Jahannam. Allah protect us from that. So this is now Shaitan giving the respite, and that's what he does. Then he comes to us, he's our Adu Mubin, a clearest enemy to us. And here it says that for him it is decreed that whosoever follows him, so whoever was to follow Shaitan in that crooked bent path, off that straight path, he will mislead him and will guide him to the torment of the fire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَهْدِيهِ إِلَىٰ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. وَيَهْدِيهِ, and will guide him. Guidance is usually just used for good, to guide, to do good. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using sarcasm, and he's mocking, using mockery. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses sarcasm as well. So who wants to be guided by Shaitan and misled into the fire, there you go. So we have to understand our greatest enemy is Shaitan, and it's a struggle. Life is a test, and it is upon us to pass it. May Allah grant us flying colours in passing it, and keep us with our Iman intact until the end of times. So we are of those not wretched ones, as I mentioned before as well, but we are of the successful ones, the ones that are happy, and alhamdulillah we have Iman. Wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.